No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mendel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. The Jets dropping a 3-1 decision to the Chicago Blackhawks, but they do star in a brand new series. It's called How to Negate Any Feelings of Optimism in 60 Short Minutes, an NHL Jets story. Gentlemen, we've talked about it all year. This Winnipeg Jets team plays down to the competition, and tonight was certainly an example of that. How coming off of a road trip, coming after off a victory in Nashville, where the team is feeling good about themselves, they come home and they absolutely lay a stinker in another one of their must-win situations, and basically all the good of last week is negated in 60 short minutes.
Yeah, sometimes, they say it's better to be lucky than to be good, right? Well, in this particular case, they did get lucky with the Mark Scheifele tying goal because that was obviously, pinball there, boys. But the Jets just weren't good enough. And, I think what's so disappointing about the end result, in addition to, Drew, you mentioned, like the Nashville game, I think that was, what you would kind of call a turning point in getting back into the playoff race or getting above that playoff line, whatever you want to say, right? It's because the first period was really good. The Jets were all over Chicago. Like it was the Marc-Andre Fleury show. The first period was heavily dominated by the Jets. And then the second period was kind of the opposite, right? Like Chicago came on, Patrick Kane obviously scores the goal and it looked like he, had another one, but he hit the crossbar. And then in the third period, I mean, it's just so demoralizing, guys. Like we've seen this so many times, not just with the Jets, but just in hockey in general, not even NHL. Like it doesn't matter if you're talking AHL, international hockey, junior, whatever. When a goal is scored right after, you're tying the game up and goals are so hard to come by. The DeBrincat goal, obviously, is what I'm talking about. The second goal, just so deflating. And you got to give DeBrincat a lot of credit, right? 28th goal of the year. It's a beautiful shot. Obviously, Kopp turns the puck over at center. He tries to go back to Morrissey. It bounces off of Morrissey. Kirby Dach is there, and then DeBrincat just goes in, and Heinola and Morrissey just, aren't tight enough on the gap, as they say, right? So, I mean, the first period gave you so much optimism, even though the Jets, like, obviously, would like to have scored more goals, but it was just one of those games where Marc-Andre Fleury absolutely stood on his head, and it's not like the Jets played their A game. Like, I really don't think this was the Jets' best effort. And you kind of, before this game, Drew, thought it was going to be maybe a bit of a trap game. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Chicago's not good. Even with Jonathan Toews in the lineup, they're just not a very good team. Like, they're seventh in the Central Division out of 8 teams, right? So, I mean, they're 9 teams now, right? Am I missing a team here?
No,
9 teams.
There's 8 teams. There's 8 teams, math genius. There's 8 teams.
Eight teams.
7.
Okay, Phoenix is in there. Yeah. I knew that, but I
There's
forgot
4
if
divisions. There's 4 divisions. They each have 8 teams. His dad is a math professor, folks.
It's late. It's 10:30, Drew. It was an 8:00 start tonight, so I couldn't remember. They're 7th. Try that again. They're 7th out of 8 teams in the Central Division. So it's not like Chicago is expecting to go on a run here and get back into the playoff picture. So yeah, just a very disappointing game coming off of that Nashville win.
It's just, it's time and time again, Dave M, that this team plays down to their opponent. You look at what a good team like St. Louis did to the Blackhawks on Saturday night. St. Louis, who the Jets beat not that long ago, I might add, just went out and they basically took the Blackhawks to the woodshed. They eliminated the Blackhawks having any hope of success in that game. And this is a Jets team that can't score 5-on-5. They scored 1 goal at 5-on-5 again. They didn't score any goals at 5-on-5 on Saturday night against the Predators, despite getting 5 of them. This game is played at 5-on-5. It is for the vast majority of it tonight.
Especially tonight, there weren't a lot of power plays.
There weren't any penalties.
They put the whistles away.
Right. So they can't, you can't score at 5-on-5. You're not going to win games in the NHL. It's basically that simple.
You're
And
right.
the Jets, can't score at 5-on-5. We've seen it for weeks on end now, if not months on end, Dave. And, it's just they get the fluke. I mean, think about it. If it wasn't for that ridiculously fluky goal that tied the game up at 1, they would have been shut out. And I know Marc-Andre Fleury played well and everything, but the Jets are familiar with Marc-Andre Fleury. They know how you have to beat Marc-Andre Fleury. And just soft plays is what doomed the Winnipeg Jets in tonight's game. Each and every one of the Blackhawks goals, forgetting about the empty netter, the 2 goals the Blackhawks scored were the direct result of soft plays by the Winnipeg Jets, Dave.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with this comment in terms of the first part, at least with Brent we've got it displayed.
Mm-hmm.
There was no emotion in the game until Adam Lowry threw that check on Gustafsson. I mean, there was nothing. It was such a ho hum. I mean, I'm in the building and I know, it's 50% capacity for the last time, and then they'll be back up to. It sounds like it sounds like in advance already. Minnesota's putting some bulletin board material. Jordan Greenway commenting after the game saying the Jets better be ready. They got to give them something back. So there'll be something to look forward to on Wednesday, but let's focus on tonight's game. And it was just a really, really sag effort.
It was a Monday night game in February, Dave.
That's true. But I mean, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, if you want to be playing hockey in April, May, June, whenever the hell the playoffs are, I mean, you need to win these types of games. You can't afford to lose. We talked about it. This is is it a must win mathematically? No, it isn't. But the reality is it really was. We said you can't afford to just have all the good that you did, winning, beating Minnesota, getting over, forcing overtime against Dallas and getting a point, beating Nashville the way you did. And then to come home and play against a Chicago team that's coming into the game 7 points back of you, and you have 3 games in hand on them. And then a Chicago team that really can't score. Not that the Jets, as Drew just outlined, can score really either, other than what they were able to do in the Nashville game. And you put up that kind of effort. I mean, it's not good enough. And it's not good enough for a team that talked about consistency, talked about, and they seemed loose. I mean, the morning availability, Adam Lowry, Brendan Dillon talking, those guys seemed like they were in good spirits and ready to go. Mm-hmm. But the game completely lacked. And look, maybe Chicago played a little rope-a-dope and tried to get the Jets, lull them to sleep. Not really rope-a-dope, but more just lull them to sleep. But it was just from the outset. Like I said, I was there, and it was just a snooze fest in that first period. And I was thinking to myself, this is just boring hockey. Like, it really is. There's nothing really worth mentioning. I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I was looking to, for the post-game recap we do on illegalcurve.com. And I was like, there's nothing to write about so far. This has been a completely low event. I looked the high danger scoring chances on Natural Stat Trick were 2-1 Winnipeg after one. I think the expected goals weren't even a full goal for either team. So, I mean, it was just boring. And then the second, a little bit better. But as you guys talked about, the teams make mistakes. And look, a guy like Pat, how many mistakes did they make against Patrick Kane? He could have had 4 goals tonight.
Sure.
He had a
crossbar.
The empty
netter.
Yeah, but he had a crossbar. He had a post.
Well, the breakaway when Hanover and Morrissey both pinched, right?
Yeah, breakaway where he scores. He has a breakaway chance, another breakaway chance. So I mean, Patrick Kane could have had a number of goals that didn't go in, but the truth is, it was not a sufficient effort. And you can give all the cliche, first game at home. I mean, it wasn't a long road trip, so there's no real excuse. And I don't really care about again, you're not really that much better than Chicago. As I started off on my little soliloquy, you're ahead of the Hawks, but you're not that far ahead that you can pretend like they're, you're a contender and they're pretenders. Right now, you both look like pretenders.
But we've talked about it all year. The Jets have an arrogance to them. And when you play down to the level of your opponent, that is having an arrogance to your game, in my estimation. That's what they are. There's no reason for them to have an arrogance whatsoever. Look where they are in the standings. That should rid you of any feelings of superiority over anybody. But that's what happens. You play down to your opponent against Buffalo. You play down to your opponent against the Blackhawks tonight. You play down to your opponent against the Coyotes. You play down to your opponent against the New York Islanders. We didn't realize at that time that the Islanders were going to be as poor as they are this year. But that's exactly what the Jets do.
That's a shot at me for picking them to win the cup, right, Drew?
I mean, that wasn't intended to be, but you can take it that way, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But that's just what it is. They play down to the level of their opponent. Tonight's game, they had to come out at the beginning of this game. In that first period, they had to have a rocket up their ass and end the game after 20 minutes. This Blackhawks team has no confidence. They have nothing to hang their hat on until you give them an opportunity to take the game. And that's what the Jets did. You come out and you win the game with a great effort in the first 20 minutes. Because if you put forth that effort, as good as Marc-Andre Fleury is, and he's still a fantastic goaltender, the Blackhawks are such a mess everywhere else besides him and Kane and DeBrincat, and they can't get the puck out of their own zone to give it to Kane and DeBrincat normally. You end the game after 20 minutes, and then you're smooth sailing. Instead, the Jets don't do that. They play a very blah first period. Both teams do. Like you said, Dave, and then boom, Patrick Kane. Well, Patrick Kane is still a world-class player. And so he says, okay, fine, I'll score a goal.
Well, he's a first ballot Hall of Fame. Like, say whatever you want about Patrick Kane and all the controversy off the ice, but I mean, this guy's still leading the Blackhawks in points. Yeah. He's still a point per game player. He will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, the cups, the score, everything. I mean, whether you like him or not, I mean, that's just the reality, right? And we talked about DeBrincat, 28th goal of the year. So yeah, the Blackhawks are a bad team, but if you have Kane and DeBrincat and Kirby Dach's a good young player. We've had Mitch Love on the show before, coached him with the Saskatoon Blades. Like, Dach's a good player. I mean, even a guy like Brandon Hagel, right? Like, Hagel's a guy played for under Brent Sutter in Red Deer, right? He's a guy Dave would know. Like, he was pretty good with Rockford in the AHL. Like, they have a team. It's like almost like their forward group is almost it's like good third liners, right? And then you've got Kane, DeBrincat, and Taves, obviously when he's healthy. But you're right, Drew. I mean, it's almost like, the fact that they couldn't get one by Fleury in the first period. I mean, it affected them in the second period. There was a lull, there was a sag, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I agree with you. The first period, guys, was not good, but the Jets were clearly the better team. The possession, I mean, will show you that, right? Like, if the high danger chances weren't there, I agree. There were some shots that were far from the outside the perimeter. They, I think, at times lacked, traffic and a little bit more of a, whatever you want to call it, a little bit more of the nose for the net. Like, and there were some positives in this game, right? Like, I thought Lowry, Kopp, and Reichel were really good.
Any positives, Ezzy? You can't take any positives out of this game. I'm sorry. I know where you're coming from, and I understand your perspective, but those are the definition of. It's just, when you have this kind of result right now, none of the positives matter. Yeah, Christian Reichel played a good game. Christian Reichel played the game that we're sort of used to him playing at this point in time, and that's a positive, and that's something that's a good.
He also
thing.
got smoked by Eric Gustafsson.
Absolutely, but
it's a huge
ultimately, it's not on Christian Reichel to be the goal scorer for this team. You know who it's on, and those guys need to just. You can't let, possession in the first period, the Jets dominated. But guess each team had one high chance. So if you're possessing the puck, but it's on the outside and you're not doing anything with it, well, some good it does. You need to find ways. You need to will yourself to get into the areas where you can get high danger opportunities, and then the Blackhawks are just going to go away. They just are. That's just what's going to happen to a team like Chicago when you step on them nice and early. The Jets don't do that. Chicago decides, hell, they're going to give us a win so we can feel good about ourselves. And yeah, Marc-Andre Fleury played great, but if you can't score against the Chicago Blackhawks, what the hell are we doing here, folks? What are we doing here?
I would simply add that how many of those shots that Marc-Andre Fleury, I thought Marc-Andre Fleury was good, but how many of those shots were his eyes taken away? How many shots did he see? I mean, it was unbelievable. And how many have we talked about that? I mean, it's like, you want to talk about broken record. All we've talked about is man in front of the net, taking away the eyes of the goaltender, and creating rebound and creating chaos. Jets didn't do that. They really didn't. And
I thought they were doing it, Dave. Sorry, I was going to say they were doing it a little bit in the first, and then you saw the Jets. Like, I really do think, and the Jets are a great second period team, right? Like, we know that. I just don't think that you saw it enough throughout the game. And I mean, we have to obviously talk about the Adam Lowry, breakaway, and we'll throw it to the chat. But I mean, to me, that wasn't Fleury throwing his stick. That was just a poke check, and the stick got away from him. But I'd like to hear what you guys think, because obviously it's creating a little bit of controversy on the socials.
I think even if it was a penalty shot, it was Adam Lowry against Marc-Andre Fleury. It's a one-sided battle with Fleury, where Fleury's going to come out on the end of that.
It took a pinball goal to beat Fleury, so he wasn't really. I mean, I think even Pierre-Luc Dubois or Kyle Connor would have trouble scoring on him, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, Adam Lowry against Marc-Andre Fleury is a mismatch.
I would say,
but that's not. What's your answer though? Whether it was a penalty shot or not?
Yeah, it should have been a penalty shot. It should have been, but if that's what you're,
I don't know if it's that clear.
To me, it was. To me, Marc-Andre Fleury is a veteran goalie. He doesn't just let go of his stick willy-nilly. He knew what he wanted. He knew that he could get away with it because the refs are. It's such a bang-bang play. The ref is probably not going to err on the side of calling the goaltender for that. He's a veteran goalie who knows how to get away with stuff like that, and he did it successfully. But if there's anybody who thinks that is a TSN turning point in tonight's contest, my God, folks, come on.
Well, no, I didn't say it was a turning point, Drew.
I know. I
was just saying it was a great scoring chance in a game in which we just talked about there weren't a lot of high danger chances, right? Like, that was a great play by Lowry shorthanded. So I'm just saying that was one of the events in the game that was controversial because some thought it should have been called. I just don't know. I really don't know. I'm not saying definitively I have the answer, and I know that that Fleury threw a stick, because if you watch the replay, and I think we all have multiple times now, you just don't necessarily know. If it was intentional or the stick just got away from him. That's all I'm saying. I thought it was interesting.
Understandable. I mean, that's matter of opinion, and I respect your opinion in that matter. I see a lot of people saying in the chat that it was a no-hitter by the Jets. Of course it was. Jets don't hit anybody. They're not physical. I mean, and it's it's the same thing almost game after game after game. How do you get into a game? You get into a game by having a tone-setting shift early in the contest. Somebody goes out there, and if you're not going to score, and that's fine because you're not going to score on every single shift, but somebody goes out there and lays a body check. And then another guy comes out there and lays another body check. And then the players are into the game. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is how we have to play. We have to be physical. I mean, you wear down a team like the Blackhawks. You throw a body check or two. And I know the Jets don't have anybody that throws a body check, but at least a couple of the guys on their roster.
What are you talking about? Adam Lowry had 4 hits. Logan Stanley had 5 hits. I mean, in general, the Jets are not as physical of a team as I think some would like. But come on, let's not say that they don't have anybody that can throw a hit.
No, they have people who can throw hits. They just don't ever do it. I mean, how many times do they?
Well, I just said, Drew, there were hits in the game, though. Like,
I'm talking about impactful plays that can set the tone, that can wake your team up when you need them to get. When it's obviously that it's a sluggish start and you're not going how you need to be going to start the game. You need a shift where you go out there and guy after guy throws a body check. And it needs to be either your third line or your fourth line, because those are the guys who need to set the tone. Those are the guys who they're not going to be your scorers for the most part, but they're going to set the tone so that your scorers, when they come on in the bump up shift after throwing a few body checks, they can get the opportunities.
Well, it's another issue
to play against the Winnipeg Jets.
You mentioned the third and fourth lines and getting some physicality. I mean, we know that Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor, Cole Perfetti. I mean, on that line, we know the only guy that's going to throw body checks on that line, right? But the fourth line, again, something we've been talking about for years on this show, or the Saturday show, is the lack of playing time for the fourth line. And 4 minutes for Dominic Toninato, Svechnikov 3 minutes 33 seconds. Harkins gets 6 minutes and 28 seconds. Like, I thought that they actually had a few good shifts in the first period. I'm
They
trying
were
to
doing as
remember.
much
There
as
was a
they were doing as much as anybody else was.
yeah, Harkins threw the puck. I don't know if Dave, you remember Harkins threw the puck and Tony Nato was, went to the net and, he didn't get a clear scoring chance, but they didn't play. Like, and this game was tied for a big chunk of the game, right? Scoreless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another example of, Drew's talking more so about the beginning part of the game, which obviously, was sleepy, but then that fourth line wasn't able to really do much. And, I thought Lowry, Kopp, Reichel again were probably the Jets' best line overall, but it just wasn't enough. Like, I agree with you, Drew. There wasn't a lot of hitting in this game, but there wasn't a lot of scoring from the Jets either. And as you mentioned, it was a lucky goal that Scheifele got. Whatever you want to say, Scheifele's red hot, but that was an easy goal for him. That was just a tap in. That was a lucky bounce. But this effort tonight wasn't good enough.
Dave, it's not even close to being in the realm of good enough. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No. I mean, it's, and I think as he isn't wrong, I think that it's one of those things that, someone needed to recognize. I mean, you have a timeout. If you see that your team isn't engaged properly, use it. Mm-hmm. Do something. Because
Dave, they didn't use their timeout, so now they get 2 timeouts the next game.
Well, I mean, that's how
that works, right? That they get to carry them over,
right?
No?
And oftentimes,
Drew's being sarcastic for anybody who doesn't understand.
Yeah. We need a big sarcasm emoji there, but I think to me, this is just it's as much on the coaching staff as it is on the players, and just not recognizing that this. I mean, and like I said, it just there were so many mistakes made by the Jets tonight. And the ones that they made ended up in the back. Like, how sloppy was that play by Andrew Kopp when, you just can't afford, you're in a tie game. Mm-hmm. You fought back. And as he said, it wasn't like that was a nice goal. That was a lucky goal, right? And that was kind of the way you're going to have to beat Marc-Andre Fleury, because you weren't really doing anything to take his eyes away, to really create chances for yourself. So, okay, so you take that. You're not going to complain. You scored a goal. So that's what, it's 1-1. That's all that matters. Right. But in the second period, Andrew Kopp it's like a discombobulated shift. And what's he do? He puts that puck why would he put the puck where he did? Like, just get it in deep. Mm-hmm. Even, if you don't want to give up possession, then find a guy but the way he did that, and it puts Morrissey into no man's land. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it was a good goal. I don't think DeBrincat should have. I mean, DeBrincat's got a great shot. I don't think he should be scoring that goal on Connor Hellebuck from that distance. But at the same time,
pretty nice shot, Dave.
No, he's got a nice shot.
No, I'm not. Hellebuck's got to make that save.
But I mean, Hellebuck's already been beaten how many times?
Well, he's got to make every save. That's what he's.
But I mean, look. But Dave Lowry has tried to make excuses in the Nashville game. He said the two shots, the Granlund shot and the Duchesne shot, he said were both redirects. Now the Duchesne shot went off of Kopp's stick. I don't know, and the way Hellebuck reacted on the first goal, on the Granlund goal. Maybe it did go off Morrissey. I don't know. But I mean, there was nothing redirecting the puck there. And so, but it starts with Andrew Kopp. I mean, it's just a sloppy play in the neutral zone when you can't afford it. It's one thing if your team is going, but it's something the Jets were playing back to almost what we talked about previously when they're on that big streak. They're playing like an AHL team right now. Like, NHL passing is crisp. It's on the tape. It's anticipating where the guy's going to be so you can get him the puck. These passes, there's no flow to the game. The passes were all behind these guys. So it was very hard to really kind of get going with any sort of speed through the neutral zone, because it was so bad in terms of the crispness of the pass. And so as a result, the Jets just didn't generate. And like I said, when they actually did create some time and space in the Chicago zone, other than, honestly, Pierre-Luc Dubois was the only guy for me whose effort I thought was there throughout the course of the game, not just in spurts. I thought he, maybe it's the casualness of his attire, maybe getting to wear t-shirts instead of suits has him feeling good about himself. I was going to liken it to George Costanza when he suggested the Yankees switch to cotton uniforms on Seinfeld because it would make them cooler. Maybe Pierre-Luc Dubois feels cooler wearing all these t-shirts, but I really just, you're trying to look at the game. Like I said, trying to find something to write about and who to write about. There wasn't a lot to write about with this team. And I just kept watching it. I'm the beauty of the press box is that you do have again, the game looks so slow because of the angle of where we're sitting. But when you're looking
height,
down, you
yeah.
really do. Yeah, the height, of course, but it's still an angle, Drew. So to use Ezzy's dad's parlance, but the reality is that you do get a chance to kind of, the game slows down, but you watch it, right? And you're watching for things to happen. And like I said, to me, that was one of the biggest knocks on the Jets tonight, was that they just weren't crisp.
They weren't quick. They weren't crisp at all. And look, Chicago, the Jets made mistakes, and Chicago capitalized on those mistakes. The first goal, Perfetti. I mean, I understand what Perfetti's trying to do. You can't do that at the NHL level. You just can't have that kind of soft flip pass sort of, attempt at this level. Maybe that works at the AHL. Maybe it works in junior. It doesn't work at the NHL level. Young player learning, whatever. Not gonna kill the kid, but you just can't do that. You learn a lesson there from that. Andrew Kopp, the bad line change. They all know better than that. And look, Chicago's got really, they got two guys who are weapons, Kane and DeBrincat. Kirby Dach's a good player, but, he didn't hurt the Jets tonight, but Kane and DeBrincat. Well, guess what? You gave up turnovers, and you had errors, and Kane and DeBrincat are the guys who beat you. Now, I don't like that DeBrincat goal. I think Connor Hellebuyck, if you look at the replay there, he's not square to DeBrincat. He's not square to the shooter. He's leaning closer to, I guess it would be Hellebuyck's the left goalpost, rather than being square in the paint. And so I think that gave DeBrincat more of an opportunity, more of a spot to shoot for. I would have started Comrie in tonight's game. I'm not blaming Connor Hellebuyck for the loss, because when you only get one goal, you're not going to win very often. But I would have started Eric Comrie because of what Dave and I talked about on Saturday's postgame show. Well, Fozzie Bear was having his romantic night out. What we talked about, the attention to detail. Oftentimes, the attention to detail is there when you start your backup goaltender. It gets everybody more focused. Dave Lowry elected to start Connor Hellebuyck. Wasn't the decision I would have made. It's not the reason the Jets lost, but it's another. I haven't seen anything from Dave Lowry to indicate to me that he's anything beyond a time-filling head coach until the rest of the season ends, and then the big reset button gets set for almost this entire organization.
Okay, well, you're touching on two things there. The second thing is a much bigger one. That seems like more of a Saturday morning topic. But you mentioned Comrie versus Hellebuyck, and I think a lot of people thought Comrie was going to get the start tonight. And I think you guys were probably thinking the same thing as I was. I think a lot of Jets fans, let's hear it in the chat here. Fozzie Bear did get milk. Thank you. I think part of it is the fact that Chicago's not exactly a world beater who puts a lot of rubber on net, right? They only had 16 shots in that. I think it was 16, if I'm not mistaken, in that 5-1 loss to the Blues, yeah, right? So right. I think that factored in, just in terms of, you're thinking, okay, well, the Blackhawks, they'll probably put on, put in 20 shots or something like that. So I think that was part of it. And then obviously the back-to-back coming up against Minnesota and Seattle at home, I think that Comrie's most likely going to get one of those starts. So then you wonder if the thought process was, okay, do we want to have Comrie starting 2 of these 3 games that are obviously critical? And again, Drew, I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that that's what I think went into the thought process for Dave Lowry and the coaching staff. And that's probably ultimately why they went with Hellebuyck, in addition to obviously Hellebuyck being, the number 1 goaltender, and the fact that he played really well, in Nashville, certainly after the first 2 goals, as you guys talked about on the post-game show. So I think that's probably what factored in there, was that, they saw what Chicago did against St. Louis, and they know that Comrie's probably most likely, I think we'd all agree, going to get the Seattle game. I think we'd be pretty shocked if Comrie starts against Minnesota. So I think that's probably what factored in the amount of rubber that Hellebuyck was going to see tonight, and then the fact that Comrie's most likely going to get that Kraken game. But I might be wrong about that, Dave, because I think you probably thought there was a good chance Comrie was going to start tonight too.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And I think it's for what Drew talked about, which is that idea that, first of all, he's coming off a very good game against St. Louis. Yeah. So, and that was the 29th, I believe. So you're already looking at a 2-week break for him. And now it's going to be even longer because, like you just said, Ezzy, and I would tend to agree with you. I think You're most likely coming back with Connor Hellebuck against the Minnesota Wild in a game that's, setting itself up to be quite a battle.
Could be a
Potentially.
bloodbath.
Could be. And so you've got to, but you have to win. I mean, you've removed the opportunity for your team to lose that game. So that's now become almost another must-win effort for your team, because you just can't afford to give away points. And the crazy part for the Jets was, just imagine where this team would be had they won tonight's game.
Yeah.
They were putting themselves within. What's that?
Go on. So I'm agreeing with what you were saying.
Yeah, it's you putting yourself within striking distance of being back in contention. Mm-hmm. And it's not such a far-fetched notion that you could potentially be back in the mix. But the problem is you just completely cut out your own legs when you do something like this, because now you're sitting there and now you make Wednesday a must win. And now, look, there's going to be a lot more emotion. And, I saw I put the comment on the screen because they said, the Jets are going to make you forget when they have a crazy game against the Wild. They're going to make you forget about this. But the problem is there's been too many of these games throughout the course of this season that were, I'm not going to say easy wins, but they were pretty close to being must wins, in the sense that you needed to accumulate points against these teams, right? Games against Arizona, games against Philadelphia. And we've talked about this, whenever the season ends, and, it's supposed to end in April, whenever the season ends, are you going to look back at 2 to 6 of these games, and those will be the reason you're not a playoff team? So look, it's not there yet, but this is one of those games they couldn't afford to lose in regulation. And they didn't play like a team in my mind. And again, I'm going to steal a Drewism here. It's that whole idea of attention to detail, but knowing that you're not playing at your best, whatever sort of justification we obviously haven't listened to the media availability, so we don't know what they're saying in it, but whatever their justification for tonight's effort is going to be, mm-hmm. If that's the case, like if you knew that it wasn't, and again, this is something that the coaching staff had to recognize and kind of seize upon. If you don't see that your team has it the way they need to, especially when a 1-all game, how do you not just keep these guys just tight, more tightly reined? Because, like I said, that Kopp play is, it's not as if Kopp is in his first year of the NHL and thinks that's a good play to make. So I just think it's I blame him for making the play. You got to blame Hellebuck for not making what should have been a save that he should have made. And then you got to blame the coaching staff, because they just didn't seem to have these guys. Like, as he said, they were lucky to be tied to this game.
Well, and
they
I
gave
think,
it away.
Guys, there were similarities, Dave, between the Philly game and the Dubois play to Heinola, right? The pinch. Like, I think, they're kind of similarities, right? Because the Jets were obviously in that game. Philadelphia's a team they should beat, different plays. But I think same kind of idea, and I don't want to pick on certain players, but the idea is that, we've seen these types of unfortunate turnovers in key parts of games against teams in which they should beat. We've seen them against good teams as well. But yeah, that's really just a head-scratching play by a veteran player.
Here's the difference, though, Ezzy, between what you're talking about in the Philly game. The attempt in the Philly game was at least an attempt to really get something going and to have an offensive chance in the opponent's zone. What that was in tonight's game, I just don't know. It was just a complete unforced error. The one in Philly, at least, was an attempt to get something going offensively, an attempt to generate a scoring chance. This was just an absolute blown play. I mean,
and when you have that line change coming too, right, yeah. Drew? Like that's why
it's an unforced
I
error.
agree with Drew. Like if anything, just flip the puck in, push the puck in just a little bit. Like just don't go backwards and put Morrissey in. Like Morrissey couldn't do anything. Like he couldn't play the puck. And then we talked about it. Like you guys disagree a little bit about. I at least disagree. I thought that was a really nice shot. Maybe I'll look at the replay, but DeBrincat is a sniper, right? But the point is, they kind of, hung Hellebuck out to dry there, and Heinola as well, who was the other defenseman out there with Morrissey, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's inexcusable when, Dave says, tonight's game isn't a must win. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Dave, but pretty much they're all must win games. Right. They really are.
But if you lose tonight, if you win tonight and then you lose on Wednesday to the Wild, okay, you've had points in every game since the All-Star break. You can understand that. Now you lose tonight. You have to somehow make up for those 2 points against the Minnesota Wild team on Wednesday that is both angry and better than you are. That's a real uphill climb now.
Well, they just popped in 7 against Detroit, right, Drew? So
scored 7 goals tonight.
Yeah.
They're pissed off. Now you are back to not being a confident team. You still can't score. I think the Wednesday's game could be a bloodbath both on the ice and on the scoreboard, largely because of a result of tonight's game.
Wednesday night's game is going to be the Boldy and the Beautiful.
The Jets lose 3-1.
By the way, they would have been 5 points back of Anaheim if they would have won tonight.
Yeah,
so
it's a huge loss.
Can you guys acknowledge I thought that was funny.
That was funny.
I should have let.
Matt Boldy had a hat trick tonight. The Boldy and the Beautiful.
I should have let you end on that one, Ezzy. Sorry for.
Let's get me at rumors right now.
But you're absolutely right, Dave. They would have been 5 points back of Anaheim. Instead, they lose tonight 3-1 to Chicago. Their record drops to 20-18-8. If they had beaten Chicago, Philly, Buffalo, and Arizona this year, the 4 games.
What about San Jose with that? Whoa, what about San Jose with an AHL roster?
San Jose way back in the way back earlier in the season.
Hey, don't diss my boy Rudolph's Balzers.
The Jets would right now be in a playoff spot.
But more importantly, everybody should be listening to Phyllis because there's a lot of people in the chat and there are not enough likes. So look at Phyllis. As Phyllis tells you to do, go smash that like button, folks.
We'll be back after these commercial messages with more of the Illegal Curve postgame show.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
He winds up. Oh, looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Boys, finding parking on game day shouldn't take longer than the Minute Minute.
It shouldn't take longer than 1 minute?
Yeah, less than a minute? I spend at least 20 driving around to find street parking, or if I'm in a rush to the game, I'll shovel out 20 at a parkade.
You're both doing it wrong. There's this app called Grid Park. It lets you find and pre-book your parking spot on game days, and you can reserve your spot up to 1 month in advance. And guess how much you'll pay?
Tell me, Dave. You know I love a deal.
Ezzy, $5.
Come on, $5?
Yeah, and it's just 2 blocks from the arena.
The Grid Park app?
Yep, spelled G-R-Y-D Park. And you know what else?
There's more?
Our listeners get their first park free with the code FIRSTPARK.
Wow, so they just download the Grid Park app and pre-book their next game day spot for free?
Yeah, you got it, Ez. Promo code FIRSTPARK. Only on the Grid Park app.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com. For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the illegal curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. Monday evening, welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. We'll be back with you on Wednesday night, of course, after the Jets and the Wild. 6 o'clock puck drop on Wednesday night, meaning post-game show right around 8:45 p.m. We were talking about it before. Dave M., Jansen Harkins, Evgeny Svechnikov, Dominic Toninato, one shift each in the third period. Svechnikov had two shifts in the second and two shifts in the first. Look,
I don't get it. I really
don't
don't
get it either.
I really don't. Like again, I go back to, in the first period, there was a pretty decent scoring chance created by just, the guys moving their feet and putting the puck on net. Like, we've talked about how much we like Harkins for years now, right? Like, he scored his fifth of the season a few games back. And like, these guys just can't have an impact on the game. I didn't see anything in their game that was so bad that would warrant one shift in a period. So again, I mean, they're going with three lines. So, and when you have three lines going and none of the lines are really playing that particularly well, you get tonight's result where you only score one goal, right, Dave?
Just as I was trying to send a tweet out to let everyone know to join the chat, keep it rolling. But as you know, it's funny, like today's Jansen Harkins 100th NHL game. And, he got a bump up a little bit.
Underutilized for 98 of those.
No, I mean, first of all, he's shown that hard work pays off, because the 2015 second rounder show, like his path was to the NHL was anything but linear. And use another mathism, but yeah, I'm with you. As like he works hard, he creates chaos. He's that kind of that guy that you want. And Evgeny Svechnikov too. I just don't understand this over reliance on your top guys. And I get it. Like, you needed your guys to score. And we talked about it after the post-game show on Saturday when the Jets beat the Predators. Secondary scoring from guys like Harkins and Toninato and Svechnikov is necessary. But of course, ultimately you need your big dogs to be your big dogs. But I just didn't see anything from Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Paul Stastny, Andrew Kopp, Cole Perfetti. Like, they had some chances, but I didn't see anything that justified such an overbalancing of the game. And it's not as if the game was out of reach for most of it, right? It was a 0-0 game for so long. So you're sitting there going, okay, well, the Jets are clearly in this contest. Why not use these guys, right? Like, why not continue to balance out? And I'm not saying all four lines have to play equal, but I mean, it's so disproportionate.
No, give them 3 or 4 shifts, Dave M.
I know.
Like,
I agree with you.
I was thinking about that before the game, right? Like, we've talked a lot about, Harkins has had that opportunity on the third line, a little bit in the top 6, but mainly obviously on the third and fourth lines. Like, Harkins, Toninato, Svechnikov is the most talented fourth line maybe the Jets have had since, they went on that run in 2017-18. Like, these guys aren't slouches. Like, we've talked a lot about Harkins and Svechnikov, Toninato as well. Like, he can kill penalties. He's a good energy player. You're not expecting him to necessarily score every night, but he does have, he'll go to the net. He'll put the puck on the net. He'll bat pucks. Like, it just, in a game like that against the Chicago Blackhawks, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like the Jets were playing Colorado and, they really needed a goal. So those guys are not going to get any ice time. Well, it really, and again, we hate to bring it up again, but it's just, it's one of those bizarre things in this game when you see Svechnikov at 3.5 minutes.
Well, and I just want to quickly interject. From a team that showed that they were completely incapable of getting to the front of the net, why not use guys? I mean, and again, that's coaching. Like, it's not as if Chicago has the greatest defense in the history of the world and they're boxing out your players and you're incapable of getting to Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, that's just work. That's work ethic, right? To get to the front of the net, to do those things. I mean, so that's why I said, like, this isn't just on the players. Players deserve their fair share of the blame, I think. But there's no question about it. I mean, the coaches, like, what are you doing? Well, like I said, it's all perimeter from this team. And that's all well and good. And every once in a blue moon, you're going to get, Mark Scheifele circling behind the net and batting home a puck that just happened to find it spot right in the right place at the right time. But I mean, it's just not enough. It's not a good enough effort from a team that fancies itself a playoff team at least.
Playoffs. I mean, look, they need a tone-setting shift, and your top two lines weren't able to set a tone with their shifts. Lowry and Kopp and Reichel did whatever they do. There's no reason why you can't give, to your point, that we're not saying the fourth line should have been out there with 5 minutes to go and you're looking for the tying goal. But when it's a 0-0 game or it's a 1-0 game and it's still early enough, I mean, to not
you
play
can get a good energy shift.
That's right.
That's what a fourth line should always do. It should
not
give
play
you
your fourth
energy.
line when you're down 1-0 to the Chicago Blackhawks. That's the equivalent of pressing the panic button, because I don't believe that at that point in the game, you need to shorten your bench. You shorten your bench when you're down by multiple goals or when you're down by a goal with 10 minutes to go. You need a shift from your fourth line that can maybe change the momentum or change the feeling or change the flow. Get them out there. Let them bang some bodies. Let them have a shift in the opponent's end. It just doesn't make any sense to play these guys a grand total of 5 shifts or 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes or 4.5 minutes. It's amazing that Dave Lowry is just basically doing the exact same job that Paul Maurice did. What's changed? Not a lot.
Well, I mean, we've seen, a nice little short road trip after the All-Star break where, we saw better results. And obviously, we talked about, the Minnesota game and then, going into the game against Dallas, how well the Jets played defensively. But yeah, and I'll give you credit, Drew, because you brought this up on the Saturday morning show. Like, even strength goal scoring is not something that any of us thought was going to be an issue on this team, right? Like, think about it this way, guys. Pierre-Luc Dubois he's on pace for a career year, right? And so is Kyle Connor. Like, Kyle Connor's most likely going to score 40 this year, might even score more. Like, Dubois and Connor are having career years, or they're on pace for career years, yet, the Jets offense is not anywhere close to where we expect it to be. That shows you how far, how big the drop-off has been, right? From Connor and Dubois. And obviously, like, I'm not saying Scheifele's having a bad year because, as of late, he's really red hot putting the puck in the net. And Blake Wheeler obviously coming off of the 5-point night. But, I mean, that shows you that the secondary scoring just isn't there. But if you're not going to even if you're not even going to play your fourth line, though, I mean, you're putting more pressure on Lowry, Kopp, and Reichel to get something going, because we talked about it. I mean, Scheifele, Stastny, Wheeler, they weren't bad tonight, but they certainly weren't creating a lot of grade A scoring chances. So I don't know, why you're continuing to put those guys out there and playing them 20 plus minutes. Why not give your fourth line a couple shifts in the second, a couple more shifts in the third? And again, we don't have to harp on the lack of ice time for the fourth line anymore, because we obviously have done that a lot tonight, boys. But it's just really curious kind of, what the game plan is here, because we did see that a lot under Paul Maurice. And, they are going to have to be better at even strength. Like, goal scoring streaks are great, like Scheifele, Connor, Wheeler, Dubois obviously has been doing it all year with 20 goals. But, doing it for one game and then, kind of playing invisible hockey the next game is not going to cut it.
Here's the list of teams that the Jets have scored more goals than at 5-on-5. The Vancouver Canucks, the Montreal Canadiens, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the New York Islanders. That's it. The Jets are 28th in the NHL, having scored 80 goals at 5-on-5 this year in 46 games. That's less than 2 goals a game. That's not just bad. That's absurdly bad.
That's also Arizona has scored more even strength goals than
Arizona. Has scored.
Arizona State, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Arizona State has scored more goals at 5-on-5 than the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, and you're telling me that you can't find more ice time for some guys who are only going to work hard? I mean, it's what are you coaching? What are you coaching? What are the players playing? Like you said, Ezzy, to your point, Connor and Dubois are having great years. And it's not like all their goals are coming on the power play. They've had some success on the power play, but it hasn't been heavily tilted that way. It's just remarkable. It's remarkable. It's the same team as under Paul Maurice. It's the same problems. It's the same coaching decisions.
And you're getting kind of similar results to what we saw during the losing streak before the All-Star break, right?
Yeah.
That was the kind of effort that you were seeing. And that's why I think tonight is so disheartening for Jets fans, because Jets fans were on such a high Saturday night.
Yeah.
And, this game was a big letdown, and you don't want to use that trap game.
That's not a trap game.
But it was a letdown. It was an emotional letdown, and it was a letdown in the result.
Calling this a trap game is bullshit. The Jets aren't good enough to sustain trap games against anybody. The only way they win is by outworking their opponent. Guess what? They didn't outwork the Chicago Blackhawks. Not a trap game. They just didn't outwork them. It's the arrogance that's in their game. It's the arrogance that's in the dressing room. It's the arrogance that's in the entire organization. You see it on the ice, oftentimes night in and night out, and you certainly saw it tonight. Tough Duck, hardest hitting comment, Ezzy. You have a winner.
Yeah, we're going to give it to The Cat in the Hat, because obviously that's a classic Dr. Seuss book. I've obviously read that to my 2 kids. I think you probably have as well, Drew. After the first period push by the Jets, you could almost see them slow down and play at Chicago's level. Can't win that way. You have to keep pounding. I agree 100%. Kind of was as simple as that. Like, a good first period where Marc-Andre Fleury shut them down. It was like back in, May 2018 when Fleury was with the Golden Knights, and he was doing that to, the likes of Scheifele and Wheeler and Ehlers and so on and so forth. So, like that comment, hardest hitting comment, Cat in the Hat. I don't think that's your real name, so send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com. Send me
his real name is
address.
Theodore Seuss. That's his real name.
Yeah, and maybe it is Dr. Seuss, right? So
Back
send me an
from the
email.
dead.
Yeah, Ezra@illegalcurve.com and mailing address. And yeah, that's the Tough Duck hardest hitting comment.
There you go. Congratulations, Cat in the Hat. You can also, slide into Ezzy's DMs at ICEZG if that's how you prefer to send in the information. But congratulations on your victory there. Big thank you to all of our sponsors for their support of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, the Illegal Curve post-game show, and, of course, our website, illegalcurve.com. One more thing, of course, before we wrap up tonight's post-game show. It's why you're all here. It's the one, the only.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Ah, yes, the Minuk Moose Minute. Well, you know what? After the Saturday game, I forgot we ended while the Moose were playing in Abbotsford. But much like it's kind of an unsurprising result, because unlike the Jets, the Moose hadn't been losing a lot of games. And they lost on Saturday to be swept by Abbotsford. That was their first time in this incarnation of the Moose 2.0 going to Abbotsford. And they lost both games. Curious decision by the Moose coaching staff. They actually went with Arvid home for both games. So I'm not sure why that was, but I would have thought, especially given that it was a back-to-back, they would have given Mikkel Burden one of the starts. But instead they went Arvid home, even though he had given up 8 goals on Friday. They gave him the start on Saturday. And yeah, so it was another Abbotsford win. Abbotsford seems to be rolling of late, and so we saw something we haven't seen all season from this Moose team, which is coming back on the road with a losing record. They went 1-3-0-0 after 2 games in Texas and 2 games in Abbotsford, and now obviously they're still very well positioned with the way they've built and accumulated points. Unlike the Winnipeg Jets, they have been accumulating points in their standings bank. So they can afford to have a little bit of a slide like this. It's not going to hurt them too badly. And with the Jets getting healthy, and we know Neil Pionk is eligible to come back tomorrow, so he should be back in the lineup on Wednesday. The Jets are going to start having to send some of these guys back down to the Moose, and especially with David Gustafsson, skating in a regular jersey. My expectation for the Jets, even if you want to get him into the NHL, get him down to the AHL, get him some minutes with the Moose, get him feeling good about his game again, because obviously he hasn't played since January 3rd, I think, when they were in Vegas on that Sunday afternoon when he got injured. So he hasn't played a lot of hockey, especially because you think about it, that was his first game after getting injured on December 17th. So it's been almost 2 months since David Gustafson's played a full game. So expect him to be, when he's ready to go, I would think, get sent down to the Moose to play. And the Moose could desperately use some scoring. So, and we don't know about CJC, so they might get him back as well. Potentially Austin Baganski. We'll see. The Jets are obviously, like I said, no taxi squad, so they won't have the luxury of keeping all these guys up. Eventually, they'll have to start sending some guys down, and that could be a good thing for the Jets. And Johnny, obviously, when Neil Pionk comes back, I would think Johnny Kovacevic will go back down to the Moose. So the Moose will have an augmented and more powerful lineup when they get going. They've got 8 games at home, starting with 3 straight against the Milwaukee Admirals. We actually have tickets to start giving away again, which will be fun. So you can go up close and personal. You might be right on the glass. We've got, I know I've got some tickets.
Just don't bang it, right, Dave?
Don't bang the glass. I do not like glass bangers. It is a pet peeve, almost as much as I hate the wave. Glass banging, second biggest pet peeve. The wave, number 1. Glass bangers, number 2.
There you go.
That's hold on. I'm not that. That's only because I hate fun. So anyway, so what I was going to say quickly, Drew, is that we right now, I know we've got tickets for the Monday game to give away, which is the Louis Riel afternoon game. I know the Jets are playing in Calgary at the same time. So we'll have 4 tickets for that game. I might have more either for the Sunday or the Wednesday game. I'm going to look into that and we'll see about that. And so we're going to start giving them away probably Wednesday night after the Wild game, or we'll give them away Thursday night after the Kraken game, or we'll give them Saturday after the Oilers game.
There you go. Lots of tickets to come. So the Minooka Moose Minute will be loaded this coming week.
Way to keep it real, Dave.
As Dave mentioned, Wednesday night, that's our next action here on the Illegal Curve post-game show, right around 8:45 p.m. after the Jets and the Wild, and then again on Thursday night after the Jets and the Kraken. Want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Bernstein's Deli, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and Grid Park. Support these businesses because of their continued support of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, the Illegal Curve Postgame Show, and of course the website, illegalcurve.com. Much more post-game coverage to come on illegalcurve.com, and so you can check that out tonight, and then of course again tomorrow morning with the morning papers, and then all sorts of action and news and everything Jets related, always on illegalcurve.com. We'll be back Wednesday night after the Jets and the Wild, 8:45 p.m. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell an enemy, tell a random person you meet on the street to come join us after each and every Jets game and on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. here on our YouTube channel. For Dave Manook, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Thanks for joining us until Wednesday at 8:45 p.m. We wish you good night and good luck.